guys. One time, when we were doing group time, Kailani came in and joined us, and we were telling stories. We were taking turns telling stories, and I asked Kailani if she'd like to tell a story, and she did, and she told a good one. And I'd like to share what she told. She said I could. And I'm going to try and retell her story. She said when she was at CCC, she tried to... No, I'm going to tell it like she would tell it. When I was at CCC, I tried to get dirty and muddy any chance I got. And one time, my friend and I can't remember her name, we were by this big puddle in the lower level, and I lay down in the puddle with all my clothes on. Good story. 2 sentences and a good story. It's short, but it goes somewhere, right, Ko? Something happens. It is a story. It's got characters. It's got a place. Something happens. And what happens matters to Kailani, right, Kailani? It's your memory of being at CCC. And it matters to us, too. I've been thinking about stories a little bit, and I want to share one. It's a story about my grandmother, my mom's mom, and it's about my grandmother when she was a little girl. She was born in 1896. Over 100 years ago now. And this story is about when she and her younger sister were little girls. My mom's name is Dorothy, and she had a younger sister named Gladys. So Dorothy and Gladys, they were both about probably 7, 8. Granny, I call her Granny, but I'll call her Dorothy. Dorothy was about 7 or 8, and her sister and Gladys was probably about 6 or so. And they were staying home one day from school. They couldn't go to school. Maybe they were a little sick, or there was some other reason, but they were staying home one day, and their mom, my mom's grandmother, because Dorothy is my mom's grandmother, so their mom wanted to go somewhere, but she didn't want to leave her 2 girls, Dorothy and Gladys, alone by themselves in the house for a long time. So she went next door to her own mom's to ask her mom, "Can you come over and stay with Dorothy and Gladys for a few minutes while I go and do something?" But she went out, and when she went out to see her mom, to ask her mom if her mom would come over for a little bit, she didn't tell Dorothy and Gladys. They were probably kind of busy doing something. She thought, I'll just go out for a moment, ask my mom to come in to stay with them, and then go do what I needed to do. So their mom went out, didn't tell them, and Dorothy and Gladys, they heard the door close. Ka-clunk, the door closed. And they immediately thought, she's left us. We're by ourselves. We gotta get out. And they were in sort of a little downstairs room. And it was a room that kind of was a little bit sunken. So at the top of the wall, there was a window, and you looked out the window and you could see the street. So right away, they figured, how are we gonna get out? How are we gonna get out? And they got a table, and they dragged the table over to the side of the room right underneath this window that was too high for them to reach. Dragged the table over. Then they put a chair on top of the table. And then one of them, I can't remember if it was my grandmother or her sister, climbed up, and they found something hard in the room, and they broke the window and opened it and crawled out the window. And it was part of the chimney somehow. So when they were crawling out the window, their clothes got dirty. And they're climbing out, and they're just getting out, going, "Yay, we got out, we're safe." They saw their grandmother coming down the sidewalk, and she was, "What are you doing?" They were okay, but they just got kind of scared, and they tried to rescue themselves from the house. And they lived in a village called Rufford, and people heard about this story. And when they went back to school, I don't know if it was the next day, but the next day or maybe a couple days later, their teacher heard about it, and he asked them about it. And he said, "Oh, Dorothy Gladys, I heard about what happened. I have a question for you. If Dorothy and Gladys, if we locked you in this room," and he must have been talking about the classroom, "what would you do?" And my grandmother's little sister said right away, "Oh, I'd put that chair on that table, and I'd go out that window." It's a little story about my grandmother when she was about 8 or so, and her younger sister Gladys. Now, I remember it roughly like that, but sometimes I forget stuff. I forget things. And I happen to have this story that my mom told me, because my grandmother had told me this at some point, but I remember it because my mom told it to me. And when my mom told it to me, I wrote it down, and so I have it. And so I'm going to read what my mom told me one time. I got it on my computer right here, and I don't know if you can see, but it's about yay long. This is my mom talking. I remember a story about Mummy and Auntie Gladys, though. They were supposed to be in school, but they had a slight fever or something, and my grandmother decided to keep them home. Then she went to go out of the house to see a neighbor or get something, I don't know, but she left the house for a few minutes without telling them that she was going and would be back shortly. They heard the door close, and they thought they had been left, abandoned. How they ever thought that, I don't know, but they did. They scrambled around trying to figure out how they were going to get out of the house. You know how chimneys at that time, I guess there was an exit at the back. They crawled out through the fireplace. What had happened was my grandmother had gone to her mother because she was going to have to go somewhere, and her mother was going to come over. Anyway, they crawled out through the fireplace, covered in soot, just in time to meet their grandmother coming, and she must have been fit to be tied to see them like that. So, when they went back to school and were sitting in the classroom waiting for attention, and this story had got around, the headmaster said, "If we lock you in here, Gladys and Dorothy, what would you do?" And Auntie Gladys, who was never at a loss for anything, said, "I'd put that chair on that table and I'd climb out through that window." I really like this story because it has like my great-great-grandmother in it. I don't think I have any other stories that has my great-great-grandmother in it, even though, you know, I don't have a picture and I don't, but it has me, because it's my family, my mom, who's telling the story, her mom, my grandmother, my grandmother's mom, his name is Minnie, and my me, my mom, I'm looking at my notes, me, my mom, my grandmother, Dorothy and her younger sister, my great-grandmother, Dorothy and Gladys's mom, Minnie, and my great-great-grandmother, Minnie's mom. And I'm really, really glad to have this story. So what I was thinking about was, since we're all at home a lot right now, this would be a really handy time if your mom or your parents or your grandparents are up for telling some stories, because they're so nice to have later on. And this is what I have, where I have this story. There's the page where it's from. It's right. This is the story that my mom told me, and I just wrote it out. And it's called Mom. I made it as a present for my family in Christmas, 1999. There's a picture. I put a picture of my mom. There's my mom. And I have one with my grandmother, Dorothy, when I visited her. Here's my grandmother, Dorothy. And one time my sister and I went to visit Granny, and we got out her tape recorder. Granny had a tape recorder, and I got a photo album of hers, and I said, just tell me about the pictures. It's a good way to get to talk about things. If you see pictures and you just say, tell me what's in the pictures. So I gave my grandmother a photo album like this. It has pictures in it of her friend, of her own pictures. And I said, tell me about what's this. And that worked out really well. And then after I recorded it, I just copied it out. It took some time. And then it's on a piece of paper. And you don't need a tape recorder anymore to listen to it if you can read. So, just a thought. Good time to tell stories.